Welcome to Celebrating Everyday People, where we recognize those amazing people doing amazing work out there. My co host is Malcolm Berman, and my name is Yana Larson. You can find us on malcolmpresents.com and on Malcolm's YouTube. We also have a Facebook page, and we're on Buzzsprout and all major directories and beyond as we enhance our online presence. Today, our guest is Mike Havanchek. Mike is a mental health therapist educated at Kent State University. Yay! Who specializes in trauma and grief issues. I think we can all agree that these are times of intense trauma and grief issues, with practically daily horrible news of yet another event. Hopefully, Mike can give us some tips on coping mechanisms today. He is also an artist and musician who has contributed to the creative community for the last 40 years, and that is a very understated truth. We'll be able to provide links, but suffice it to say you can find his work on Bandcamp and Flickr. He lives and works in Kent, Ohio with his family, and they are also quite brilliant. Welcome, Mike Havanchek.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
being here.
I'm happy to be here.
Welcome, Mike. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So, what tips do you have for us with everything that's happening? Your kids are old enough to have an idea about what's going on somehow, I
That's right.
imagine, and you know what's going on. And
hmm Yes. So where do we go from here? Well, very often this is what my clients come in with. I'm stressed about what I just saw in the news, or I'm stressed about losing funding in my job, and all related to these same issues. And so I spend a whole lot of time helping people get through that. And helping somebody get through it does not minimize that this is a real legitimate stress. It's not saying like just do this or that. It's fine, but right. I don't want to do that. I don't want to invalidate somebody's experience because I feel it too. I'm not impervious to all the stress of the world either. But there are some tried and true things that are known to be helpful in getting through stressful times.
like what? Can you share anything with
Sure.
us?
Here's one of the really big concepts is there's something that I developed called I call it the continuum of control. So you know what a continuum is, where you've got something on one side and then the exact opposite on the other side, and then all these gradations between. So if we think about a problem of some kind we have, one side is things we have no control over, and the mistake we often make is obsessing on that thing even though it doesn't change anything at all except damages us. So, on that end, we have to practice radical acceptance. On the extreme opposite end are things we have a whole lot of control over. And the mistake we often make is in ignoring or neglecting that because we're busy on this other side with the things we have no control over.
We get obsessed over there.
We do.
Yeah,
We get stuck with the injustice and the unfairness and of things that we can't change.
yeah.
But there are things.
I have a question in that because this seems to be a period like no other period that I've lived through.
Yeah.
And number one, it's a 24-hour news cycle. So
hmm
in the old days, if I went to sleep in Eastern Standard Time at 7, 8 o'clock, there'd be no news till the next morning because nobody would do anything. Now we
The
have a
TV, it was like it went to what's that called? Snow or whatever.
yes.
Yes.
I
That's
mean,
right.
right now we have a 24-hour cycle. We have a president that does his social media, truth social, truth media, on a 24/7. So you wake up 2 o'clock in the morning, and we have something new, or there's something new happening. So it's kind of hard to avoid the news. Number
But you
two,
have control over not turning the news
yeah.
on.
Number two, what you say is what you have no control over. You put in one side of the continuum, but
Yes.
we're constantly being spoken to that we do have control. We do have control on who's in the Senate, who's in the Congress, what we could do to get someone else elected,
Yeah.
and whether we could march or not march or be part of the protest or not be part of the protest. So there
Hmm.
are decisions to be made under that continuum. So I think it
Yes.
changes a bit.
And the continuum at this point, as I've described it, is the serenity prayer. Change the things you can change, accept the things you can't. But
Yeah.
there's a middle point in that continuum. And that middle point is things we have some control over. Not guaranteed 100%. We got some control over. And in that space, we often are so stressed about the thing, we say, that won't help, nobody cares, and we give up. When the healthy alternative to that is advocating, like protesting, petitioning, is not guaranteed to help. But if we had to choose between guaranteed failure or something that might help starts to sound pretty good. And so take what you just said. The president does some awful things. We get this 24-hour news cycle. Those are all the things we have no control over. What do we have control over? How much news we consume, what sources we look at, how much we take care of ourselves, stress management and things. And then in the middle, are there things we can do? We can vote according to our values and our wisdom. We can protest things. We can refuse to feed into the toxic elements of our culture. And so if we place our actions according to how much control we have, we're now enabled to act on our life. And one part of that acting on our lives is taking care of the immediate, our community, our people, our loved ones, is actually an important part of building resilience. Recognizing maybe I can't kick the president out of the White House, but can I be good to my kids? Can I help someone in my community who's struggling? And then we recognize our power. There is Albert Camus, the French philosopher,
Yeah.
came up with this philosophy called absurdism. And it's the idea that the world is full of absurd, unjust, horrible things. And in that, you can think of where that takes you, horrific injustices and all of that. And yet, if we can find meaning and purpose and find joy in life and contribute to the world, that's an act of defiance against the absurdity of the world.
But what if there's something that's happening to a member of your family, for example,
Yeah.
can't get the health care that he needs because he's a trans person or is really in fear for his life because he
Yeah.
is trans. And that is something that's real. And it's
Sure.
not just something in the news, like worrying about what happens to trans people. But when it's in your family, it's in your life, and all you can just think is, I don't know what to do.
Yes. And so let's take that and put it on that continuum of control. There's something we can't control. Like there are some people doing awful things right now who are not in our radius. I'm not going to get to talk to Stephen Miller and try to argue with him about these ideas. I can't control that. I can control being good to the loved one, being supportive, letting them know I hear them and I'm there for them, and that if there's some role I can take in assisting them, I will gladly do that. And then there's that middle, the things we have a little bit of control over. We can protest, we can do the petitions. Those things don't work instantly, they don't always work at all, but compared to doing nothing, they're pretty fantastic. And if you look through history, those things do turn the tides often. You could look at things like the civil rights movement. You could look at if you look historically at the change in gay marriage, it went from hardly anybody supported it to even a lot of Republicans supported it. Now it's starting to turn the other way, but it shifted in a more rapid way than you normally see in a culture, and it was through things like people speaking up, people having conversations, people protesting the things that weren't okay. The AIDS protests were incredible. They were creative and innovative, and they changed the world. And The if you look at civil rights, look at how they innovated new ways to protest. I feel like right now we need new ways to protest beyond what we've been doing.
Mm,
Yeah.
definitely. Uh, Another question I have, which now the media and the news are almost like opposed to each other.
Yeah,
I listen to most of all the news stations, but when I'm listening to, let's say, a CNN broadcast or a liberal broadcast, it's one view of what's happening.
that's right.
I'll turn on to a Fox,
Hmm.
and it's completely reversed. It's a different view, and some of
Yeah.
them, are very close together. So who do you believe? Like, what set of facts do I base my actions on? How do you decide?
Yeah, there's that discernment. And a lot of that discernment comes from considering a lot of voices instead of relying on any one source to tell you where the reality lies. And being willing, when somebody's telling you what you want to hear, to consider that that may not be what's true or good. Like that Paul Simon, the line in the Paul Simon song where he says, "Man hears what he wants to hear and disregards the rest." We have to work hard to hear opposing views. There's a saying that we that I'm sorry that a room full of people who all think the same thing aren't really thinking at all. If nobody's pushing back and challenging you and offering different perspectives, you are actually having an incredibly shallow conversation, and you're not stretched and challenged to grow. So we want to look at a variety of voices. We want to have good critical thinking skills to see through manipulative types of tactics, like whataboutism and hysterical ways of reporting things. And so
Look
it's
for the absurdity, probably right. You know,
You're
like,
sounding like you're in a room full of uh, religious Jews talking the Torah. Supposedly, if you have a room of 20 religious Jews talking about the same subject, you'll have 20 different viewpoints. But that's supposed to be, they're
yeah.
supposed to argue about it and change, and each one, have different thoughts. But going on with that, uh, what happens, like, even right now, even in families, people can't talk about what's happening because it comes into arguments because they're diametrically opposed to each other. How do you avoid situations like that?
It's by not taking the bait and not recognizing that when you try to change somebody's opinion with a direct argument, you've got about a 0% success rate doing that. That, telling somebody off, for example, never results in them going, you know what, you're right. I'm going to rethink my position on this. Never, ever happens. But we can go to the human side. So, for example, I have a father who's very conservative. And he will often ask baiting questions, like, why are you a therapist? Aren't you just giving free things to lazy people all day? And he's waiting for me to try to explain all the data and all the benefits and why it's good for society, and here's the research on that's not his language. What he's asking me is a very emotional thing. He doesn't want data. And so no matter how much data I give him, look at the research on how much it actually saves money in this community when you help people before they get worse. None of that's going to resonate. But what I can do is say, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I've heard your opinion on that, but what are you up to these days? You working on any? He's a guy who does a lot of physical labor. Hey, you working on putting that roof on yet? And
he just
that is two humans talking about human things. Like otherwise, what it is two people shouting the slogans, the bullet points of their side, and then everybody walking away thinking they won.
So in other words,
what I like to say in those situations, I like to remember Dana Carvey on late night or Saturday Night
Saturday
Live.
Night Live.
It's Saturday Night Live, and he would go. He played the church lady. I like to go. Well, isn't that special?
Yes.
It's,
Yeah, when you recognize somebody's baiting you, you realize your power is in not taking the bait. Your power
Yeah.
isn't in taking the bait and then defeating them in a conversation. And the reason is there's a psychological principle that when you're having an argument with somebody, the real issue isn't the topic you're arguing about. The real issue is, am I okay? Am I a good person? Do people like me? And so when somebody's arguing with us, we're actually defending our soul. We're not defending the point. And that's why people will double down on a point after you've soundly defeated it, because it's not really about that topic. It's about trying to be reassured that they're a good person. And so instead, if you go to the human, like, so tell me about your projects, or, I know your opinion on that, or I guess we won't agree, but what about, how are your kids, that kind of thing.
in other words, diverting the issue.
Yeah.
But in doing that, you're reinforcing that I represent the other viewpoint, and I'm a good person.
Hmm.
And
And
you are a good person. I so admire you and your family. I happen to know him because we go to the same church, and it's a joy to watch his children grow up because they are so amazing. But I wanted to talk. I know that a lot of what you use in your own personal life and with your family is art and music, and certainly being able to like when you're feeling really upset and doing something creative it is a great antidote.
it absolutely is. My line of work, I'm doing a lot of trauma work, a lot of grief work, and I'm hour after hour talking to people about the most brutal, painful things, and I'm watching them express intense emotions. I get attached to these people, and they're telling me the most horrific things, and it's an honor to be invited into their world and to be trusted to work with them on those things. But after 8 straight hours of hearing those stories, how do I not self-destruct? How do I not carry that around and lie awake all night and torment myself with the memories of what I've heard? So I go home and I work on art and music. And when you're totally consumed with something you're passionate about, it crowds out these nagging thoughts that are actually unproductive at that point. There's no action I can take for a client in that moment. I'm home, it's the end of the workday. So I can crowd it out and get a break, and then I'm ready that next day to come into work and see the next person because I got a little break from all that stress. And it doesn't mean I'm avoiding the stress. It means I can't be immersed in it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Now,
But how
do you,
do you balance with everything that you need to accomplish each day as all of us have to in our daily lives
Yeah.
plus what you do? Malcolm, were you going to say something?
now,
Were
do
you
you
going
have a
to
private practice, or are you working for an organization, or how do your clients find you?
I work at Town Hall 2. It's a small nonprofit that is walking distance from my home, so it's like right in my community, right part of everything I love and I'm attached to. And we work with a range of mental health things, and we also have an addictions department. So um, people can track me down at Town Hall 2 if they like.
Now, do you have a gradation in your costs and your because I know I've gone to therapy and some of them can be very expensive, but is there any
Yeah.
qualifications that they can do for a less amount of hourly
Yeah.
charge?
Absolutely. What we do is we do an assessment on seeing how affordable we can make it, and we have grants and all sorts of things we can pull in, and very often we can offer services for very inexpensive or free. And that's a big value of the agency is how do we, not let costs be an obstacle to helping people. Because
Now,
but they're
insurance companies.
allowing you to be able to make a living too, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean it's notorious for not paying well that line of work, but it's just that in
so,
some ways that's not all bad because if this was big money, people might be in it for the wrong reason.
mhm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can someone reach you? Do you have a website or a telephone number?
Yes, as you mentioned, if you do the links to my art and music,
Yes.
that has contact information. So
But otherwise, it's Town Hall in the
Town Hall
city.
2 in Kent is another
Yeah.
way to reach me.
Well, we hope we can have you back because 20 minutes isn't enough
Yeah,
to
because our
get
time,
every.
actually our time is almost up.
Sure.
Yeah.
In fact, it is up.
Okay. All right.
But
All
very
right.
engrossing, and I think I'm going to try to incorporate some of your advice into my private life.
Yeah.
Good. Excellent. Yeah, have
Yeah.
at it. It's stuff that I want. I'm an evangelist for this stuff. I want to spread it around to anyone who'll hear it.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
there's one thing
perfect.
which was unique. I'm a member of a health organization, and they had therapy. And a few years ago, I went to it, but instead of going directly to the therapist, I would do a Zoom. You offer services like that?
We do. They started that during the pandemic. It used to not be allowed by the state, the licensing board. But since when the pandemic kicked in, they said, well, for a while you can do it. And then they realized the huge benefits. We have people with mobility issues, people with childcare issues, people with no immune system from illnesses who need services in that format.
And
And
did they?
it's not perfect, but it's not the complete human connection, but it's pretty darn close, and especially
It's
for people
better
who
than
otherwise couldn't
nothing.
do it. Absolutely, there's some people who couldn't otherwise do counseling.
But do
Exactly.
they? Do you have a regional type of limit? I mean,
Yeah,
let's say
I
I'm in California. Can I go to you as a therapist?
no. The way it is in our country, unfortunately, is every state licenses their therapists, and then, for example, if I have a client like a Kent State student and they go back to Nebraska for the summer, I'm not allowed to do sessions with them because I'm
Oh,
not licensed in Nebraska.
anyway,
Oh,
okay. Well, again, thank you very much, and t take us out, Yana.
okay. Well, thank you very much, Mike. And we hope you have enjoyed our show. If you have any questions or comments, please send us a message at malcolmpresents@gmail.com. And remember, you can find us at malcolmpresents.com and YouTube and Celebrating Everyday People on Facebook and Buzzsprout. Goodbye.
Bye. Thanks again. Bye.